All right. So we're
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, here.
What?
Start with this first.
There you go. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
All
Now
right.
you know it's real.
Okay.
Now you know it's real.
Stuff's real now. You want to come in with this right here?
Here we go. All right, let's do it. Here we go.
2, 4. Woke up this morning, feeling blue. Got a heavy heart and nothing to do. I'm searching for something to ease my mind, something to help me leave it all behind. There ain't no sunshine when she's gone, and my heart just can't carry on. There ain't no sunshine when she's away. I need her here to brighten up my day. Welcome to Two Guys with Guitars. I'm going to explain to you what we just performed here in a minute. But that right over there is Dr. Dylan Caligiuri.
Hey!
And over here is Eugene Edwards. Now, Dylan, you want to care?
Yeah.
Do you want to care?
This is big.
Would you care to explain to the good folks there at home what they heard us just perform?
Well, Eugene, I didn't write that song. And you didn't write that song. ChatGPT wrote that song. In the style of Bill Withers, or supposedly, right? And so you could argue our performances, but you can't argue that fact. I typed in this exact prompt to ChatGPT.
What'd you type in?
You ready for this? Write me a song with chords for guitar that includes an intro, verse, choruses, and bridge in the style of Bill Withers. That's all I typed in.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And I got out the alleged masterpiece that you just...
Okay, now, so I'm looking at a Google Doc right now as we perform that.
Sure.
And right before we hit record, Dylan let me see this. So I'm looking at it, and the lyrics are written out there. I woke up this morning feeling blue, got a heavy heart, and nothing to do.
Right.
I'm searching for something to ease my mind, something to help me leave it all behind. That's verse 1. And then there's chords. There's G, B7, C, and G. And then you repeat those. So
it's almost
right. So then I can't sing like Bill Withers, obviously, but now the melody, it didn't notate a melody, so I just came up with a melody that followed along with those chord changes, and made sure Bill Withers he stayed within a certain range when he sang.
Yeah.
He wouldn't jump up to falsettos radically or anything like that. He kind of had a real nice conversational delivery.
a couple songs he did, but it was notable.
When you're not strong,
Yes.
a very diatonic singer.
Yeah.
Right. So I just kept that in mind. And so that was the verse and chorus to what the robot thinks is a typical Bill Withers song.
So the robot is... Can you move that over just a little
I'm sorry,
bit
buddy.
so I can make sure I don't get off frame? So the robot's like... He. See how I'm anthropomorphizing the robot?
You didn't you?
Damn it. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Hi, Hal.
Why does it have to be a he, Dylan?
Yeah, Dylan.
It could be a... Okay. The robot is basically taking its scan of all Bill Withers lyrics, the opinions and statements and critic arguments, the compartmentalizations, the gear page tone reviews,
nice.
all of it. And it's
oh my God, I would love that.
Okay, and it's saying, hey, this is what remember the bracelets in the 90s, WWJD, what would Jesus do?
Oh yeah.
This is what would Bill Withers write.
There you go.
Yeah. And I don't think it's doing a very good job.
Okay,
by the way.
well, look.
And can I make a case, or do you want to go first?
No,
Do you want to make the case for the robot?
Not necessarily, but I will say this. It's not a matter of defending the robot, but I'm not getting upset about this issue like some people are. And I tend
very upset.
I tend to avoid doomsday and slippery slopes, and I just don't think it's a very healthy way of thinking.
Yeah.
I enjoy them. So I guess this came out. Well, by the way, it actually has the line "Ain't no sunshine when she's away."
So
at one point.
that could now. I just want to GPT if you're listening, and I know you are.
Well,
so I just want to give you some
always
feedback
listening.
here. That could pose some problems in copyright down the road.
And we're going to talk about that later
Yeah.
in today's show too. So, because that's in the news. So look, this was okay. Let's be honest. You and I have been around some time in the biz,
right?
And in the world, and I'm sure people are aware of this. Sometimes for a TV show or a movie, people can't afford an actual Bill Withers song. It's just way too expensive to
I'm
to
familiar
use
with
that
this
recording,
concept.
or to even use someone re-singing a Bill Withers song. So even that's
Sure.
about it. So they come to guys like us and say, look, here's the scene. And we wanted to use this Bill Withers song. They'll put "Use Me Up" or something like that.
Yeah.
Use me. Dun, dun, dun. Go ahead, give me a little sound. So we tried to use Bill Withers' "Use Me Up," but we just can't afford it. We don't have the budget. So can you give us something here about 90 seconds and give us that feel? And then we would basically analyze.
Well, the first question should be, did you already ask Bill Withers? Because if you have, which they do often, by the way, and it's like, I think that was a stupid choice, wasn't it? Because now Bill Withers knows
He knows to
that
be on
we're
the
making an
lookout.
analog of Bill
Right.
Withers.
Now, so then we would listen to some Bill Withers tracks,
Which we're already doing.
which is
Yeah.
a pleasant, something we should all do because
Yeah.
Bill Withers is fantastic.
Yeah.
And we're looking for some commonalities from song to song, or like, or even if it is "Use Me Up," and we like, well, usually it's going to be something at that tempo, pretty funky. Now we might do something like the "Use Me Up" lick. Can you play it again? It's in E. So he's outlining an E minor and a D major.
I think that's an A.
Oh, sorry. Right, sorry. So it's got this E minor A. So maybe I'm going to flip that and maybe use E major to another chord. Like I'm not going to use. I maybe don't want to hear E minor pentatonic because that's too on the nose with the Bill Withers thing. So I'm gonna scoot some things around, dig, and hopefully it's close enough, but keeps us out of court. That's
Right.
That's the goal. Well, the robot's not worried about court, and that's a different subject. But
Well, I'm wondering if I had asked him, hey, write this, but avoid all potential copyright infringements. If
that'd
that
be
would have
good.
yielded a result that
it
was
could.
more, you
But
know what
now
I mean?
notice this song is here. It's a bad song.
It's a terrible song.
But here's why. There's no detail. These lyrics are just all, it's Moon, June, Spoon platitudes. I woke
I
up
don't
this
even know what
morning
they
feeling blue, got a heavy heart and nothing to do. I'm searching for something to ease my mind, something to help me leave it all behind.
They're just trying to rhyme the last word.
Like a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Now, frankly, we hear songs on the radio that still use lyrics that are these
Easy.
simple. No. But if you have a brilliant singer, you might get away with it. I don't know. It's not for me to judge.
Woke up this morning.
Now, what would really be fun is ask it to do it like with someone like Bob Dylan, where the imagery and the lyrics could just be, it could be anything.
Right.
That'll get pretty fun. Now, but for the purpose, it kind of gets ain't no sunshine when she's gone. It actually has that.
It has that could be a serious
that's
problem.
right. But it's very much in the style of Bill Withers. You can't argue it's not.
No.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm just okay. Now think back to when you were learning, probably studying jazz guitar. Let's just say what we
I have
do,
a
like at
beret
Berkeley.
on,
Think
or-
like if I want to. Well, no, I'm just saying like if I was at college or not college or not, doesn't matter. If I
College
wanted
of Hard Knocks.
Let's say I just
Eugene.
let's say I wanted to study. I wanted to play more like Barney Kessel. Great player.
Reasonable
Great,
goal.
great. Yeah. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm gonna first I'm gonna listen to Barney Kessel. I'm gonna listen like it's all I'm gonna listen to, and I'm gonna notate. I'm gonna transcribe the solos.
Yeah.
Or if they haven't already been written out. If they've already been written out, then I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna look at it. I'm gonna learn, solo by note, measure by measure, one song after another, and I'm going to, because the human brain will do this, and I know you'll speak to this in a second. I will start noticing patterns, tendencies that Barney Kessel tends to do. I'm not saying this is literal. Let's say whenever there's an E major, Barney will tend to play a B minor shape over that. He's actually gonna substitute a shape over there to avoid playing two on the nose. So even though we hear that's right, so he's going to create a new, and that's just let's say that's a tendency he has to do. We would do this with Stevie Ray Vaughan, frankly. It doesn't have to be jazz. Or Mark Knopfler. We just we just kind of notice there's, instead of just playing this, going to that note,
Yeah.
he'll rake up to it.
Oh, right. Good.
Right? All of this, and I can Knopflerize it pretty quickly with that little rake there. Now, because I just listened tons of the Mark Knopfler, and that's a tendency he has.
Right.
So we used to be the robots that would study the tendency of an artist, and then we would kind of regurgitate that.
Yep.
And somewhere along the way, either we get stuff wrong or we nail it, and then we progress from there. And we add our thing to it, and we build. And that's how we build our own specific styles. Now, so you are what you eat, basically, in music, as in anything. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, talk about when we're learning stuff. This where we notice patterns.
Yeah.
Now, talk about us learning patterns from our favorite players.
Sure.
But also, why do we, as players, tend to play the same patterns?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, let's do a playing example. So, starting on this song. So, once we knew it was Bill Withers, and we had the chords in front of us, and we're reading the lyrics, and we're working out a scheme to present the chords and the lyrics in an interlocking way. So, if it's like
first of all, we didn't even talk about it, but I guess we did tend to play one chord per measure. We changed every measure,
and we also tended to play a backbeat. So we
because
took into
Bill
account
Withers,
harmony, the voicing of the harmony, the rhythm. So those were the two elements that are like the overarching elements that have a lot of subjectivity that can be applied.
Okay.
And we started narrowing down that subjectivity to make it objective based upon our outcome. Now, the parts that you spoke to were the parts that were idioms and motivic based. So these are like techniques and skills and inflections, special techniques, things like that. Whether you rake to a note,
kind of the ornamentations. We talked about this several weeks ago. Ornamentations,
right? Yeah. So these are all this sort of idioms, and they're called idioms because they are human characteristics that a person adapts to develop a style, and then they repeat something over and over again to get good at it. And after a while, you go, "Hey, Bill Withers, sing," and he repeats his sort of software code, but with different ideas behind it and in different contexts. Now, what you described was the learning process.
You're right.
And the learning process for us, when we're approaching something from a learning stage, we're actually setting out to do what the robot's doing. We're trying to emulate directly. So if I say, hey, I want you to learn the 50 capitals of the states in the country.
Okay.
Because Puerto Rico we're never going to count you. I'm sorry, apparently.
It's a shame.
It's the way it's going to be.
Great. Okay.
It would take the number to 51. That's not sexy. So
be San Juan.
Yeah. But the point would be, I wouldn't ask you to sort of improvise some of them.
Oh, right.
Right. So if I say, hey, learn how to write a fugue like Bach, or learn how to apply Harmony Evo or this software that Billie Eilish uses to a Billie Eilish song, I'm not asking you to do it in an abstract where you change it. I'm saying create the actual exact framework or as close to it as you can. Now, what I would say is where learning and creativity, sort of extends from learning, is when you make mistakes. Mistakes are actually, mistakes is another word for changes, differences.
Well, okay, so now that's because we're talking about the creative process there. Now, if I'm assigned to play a classical guitar piece, and I don't play it correctly as written, that's a mistake because it's codified. Right, that G above middle C on the and of 3 is written, and if I don't play it right there in that spot, that's a mistake.
Well,
but if we're writing a song,
yes,
if
you're playing a written classical piece,
that's what I'm saying.
There is space for inflection in those, though, right?
Inflection,
and it's in the interpretation of what's there,
sure,
and nothing more.
Right. Okay.
You don't change what's there. That's what you're saying.
Correct. I don't change what's there. But if I'm writing a tune, or if I'd like to write a song in the style of someone, then mistake. We kind of want a mistake.
Well, now you're getting to where modern music and modern popular music really took the liberties that classical music didn't. So in classical music,
good point.
If I'm going from this guy right here, so if I'm going from
that's a G7, folks, to C major.
There's the reason these two voicings are very common and also very strange on guitar in some respects. If you look at it in a bard situation, it's pretty difficult to play. Is because they voice lead perfectly. The voice leading from the 7th of the chord has to basically resolve.
The tension is perfect.
Exactly.
You have 2 half notes.
It has to resolve down. The 7th of the chord resolves down to the 3rd of the 1 chord.
Yes,
and so that's just one of the voice leading rules that became part of what's called SATB, or 4-part part writing. And that's the basis for classical music. So what we said was classical music has a canon that's specifically applied and it's been codified and it's used in a specific order. There's an authoritarian element of classical music. Now, that was broken in the 20th century.
Correct.
And prior to that, even in the Romantic period. And that's what laid the ground for us to have what we have now. Even many things that are attributed to the Beatles or to Gershwin or somebody like that, they're analogs of things that were already
Billy
done.
Joel lovingly speaks of Debussy.
Yeah,
Debussy,
well,
sorry,
good for him.
because
He's smart to do that.
because he knows it and he knows it. Now, now let me move on.
Yeah.
To something else. So we actually have another song that the robot came.
Oh, we got to do the other song.
Okay,
yeah.
so here's the other song the robot came up with.
Oh, this one might be worse.
Okay,
That's it down there. Yeah.
I'm just keep writing.
So, let's see what was
I'm gonna have you sing this because you know this guy's vocal style more than I do. Oh, that little intro there, nice.
Saw you standing there with a smile upon your face, real weird right there. Make my case. Here we go. Take me there. 'Cause you were the one I adore. I just can't take it anymore. I'm falling on my knees, begging,
Sorry.
baby, can you please? Won't you give me one more chance? 3, 4, Anyway, so it's supposed to be in the style of John Mayer.
It's
now.
John Mayer. I
hope you're not watching, John.
So you put into the prompt, write me a song with chords for guitar that include an intro, verse, chorus, bridge in the style of John Mayer. That's
Yes.
all you put.
Yes.
So
And I lacked breathiness in my interpretation.
and the robot just took all it knows, all the transcriptions, all the chordifies out there in the world.
The
right?
Rolling Stone interviews, the Jennifer Aniston date.
No. Now, okay. So this is what we did was a combination of the robot and us. So the robot spit out these chord changes. By the way, notice A minor 7, D7 are the first chords of the verse.
Yeah.
So not A minor and D.
No.
So this tells us that John, and we know John did study music. John, as much as he, it's rock and pop and blues and all these things, but I think he does have respect for, and it's not full on jazz, but the fact that for the most part, if it's a minor chord, he will put the 7th in there. The flat 7 will be in there,
at least.
as opposed to just a straight up A minor. He's going to add that 4th voice in there.
Yeah.
If he's playing the 5 chord, in this case D, he'll put the dominant, the D7 in there because he understands that tension release going from D7 to G, how important that is. And then, so the robot kind of notices these patterns.
Right.
I'm using my hands a lot. It's probably very annoying. Now, and I don't listen to a lot of John's stuff, but I do know his tone is very Stratocaster centric.
Sure.
Very Clapton style he talks. I mean, he's very open about his influences. So I kind of knew to kind of just play along these changes and kind of hit certain. I figure that he's going to bend up to the major third in a real Clapton-y way. There's going to be some pick scrape. So all that raking, that's very Stevie Ray Vaughan. Where I guess I was middle position on a Strat. I guess, does it go out of phase a lot?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. I don't know what he does, but so that's my human interpretation of hearing John, of what I've heard of and seen of John Mayer, and the robot had its own interpretation of what the song would be. So I think there's room for like the bots and the humans to kind of get together and kind of, I don't know, maybe some guys who have to come up with music for television, to do the licensing stuff, they might use the robot for a few things, but then like start changing things around a little bit to kind of improve it.
Well, let's
this
talk
song's
about
not that good
that's
either.
a great point.
So let's talk about this. Yeah.
What are we saying when we say, I think John Mayer style music would fit great behind this scene, or I think Bill Withers music would fit great behind this scene, or I think
It's what music supervisors do this all day.
Well, we're saying I think this aesthetic that this
I get
person
you.
is associated with
Right.
belongs in the screen. And this is the thing about creating music for television and film. And you could go to school for creating music for television and film and have great success or no success based upon not your technical knowledge, but realistically whether you're starting your goal of writing music for television and film with that specific idea in mind. Okay. So can I see a scene where this song or this whatever it is writing, where this fits? Like, does it evoke something? An evocation is really where it's where the currency of music, it's where the transaction takes place for the human interpretation, right?
Yes.
The human evokes the art. The art evokes itself, and the human interprets the evocation.
Sure.
Okay. And since the art is not alive, we really can't say it evokes itself. It's interpreted by the person who actually is evoking, if you think about it. So, in a sense, every artistic transaction takes place at the listener or the viewer or the sensory aesthetic level.
Right.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's a tree falling in the forest and no one there's to hear it. Sort of thing.
Exactly. Okay. Without Eckhart Tolle, when you're so. I mean, we talked about John Mayer. John Mayer got famous for a reason. He's an incredible songwriter. He's an incredible guitar player. He's an incredible. He's a magnanimous personality.
He's charismatic. Vocally delivers in a real personal way.
He deserves every bit of fame that he gets. And even if I didn't like his music, I would still think that.
Sure.
And part of that is because the aesthetic that he creates is so clear. Now, what this computer, what ChatGPT is attempting to do, is encapsulate the aesthetic.
Okay.
And take its most language is its tool. So it's trying to take its most languageable elements and basically use that to encapsulate and then redistribute that.
Also, like John Mayer's known for writing romantic songs. Man Wants Girl.
He was.
Seduction songs. I mean, he was. I mean, for the longest time, a lot of those songs were to get. It was very romantic stuff, and
especially in the beginning. Yeah.
So I think the robot is clearly like kind of going towards that era.
I think so
John
too.
Mayer, obviously, right? I knew right then and there that I had to make my case because you're the one that I adore, and I just can't take anymore. I'm on my knees. I'm begging, please. Very vulnerable sort of stuff. Okay, so it's picking up on that tendency of the era. Now let's talk about. Now I'm going to shift over to something else in the news. Ed Sheeran.
Yeah,
Well, no, I mean he's fine, right? The court,
timing though.
The court ruled in his favor. He's fine. But what's the name of the song? His song.
What's that?
No, what's the name of it?
And if ever cause darling Now hold on, right here. Wait, hold on. Slow down. I've been really trying, baby. Trying to hold back these feelings for so long. And if you feel
so clearly, there's
some share.
Okay, so we're not arguing whether there's a similarity. That's objectively true.
Well, that similarity wasn't created by either one of them, though.
Fine. Yeah. So now I'm not going to get into whether the
so
jury,
they don't own it.
I'm not going to get into whether the court was right or wrong.
They were right.
That's been adjudicated.
Okay.
But there was a lot of doomsday scenarios painted by people.
They tend to do that.
Someone I know really well wrote a piece for the Washington Post, and I thought it was a little bit hair on fire for no reason. It's actually, I'll send it to you because she's such a great writer. And privately, she and I had discussed this.
Can't we say her name? We can say
Elizabeth,
her name, right?
our buddy Elizabeth Nelson.
Yeah, Elizabeth is a fantastic
genius. Just a fantastic writer.
Yeah.
And she's also a songwriter. So she was genuinely concerned that if Ed Sheeran lost this case, that it would change songwriting for forever and not for the good.
I'm with you, Elizabeth. Let's go to lunch.
However, George Harrison lost his case in 1976.
Bullshit.
I'm just saying he did. He lost the case, and we all still kept making music. It didn't stop anything. So
wait a minute. You're saying that outcomes of particular situations do not cause global destruction.
Would you believe it? I mean, I'm just saying that these cases have come up before. They're going to come up in the future. Whether we like it or not, they're going to happen. But the point is, it's not going to stop people from making tunes. Now, Ed, I think part of this thing, I think Ed goes from D major to D with F sharp in the bass.
Yeah. So this is just
as where Marvin Gaye and Ed Townsend, who wrote Let's Get It On, go from D major to F sharp minor. Now, you know what the difference is?
Not very much.
A semitone.
Oh, yeah, one note.
Instead of this, It's that. Okay. So, and I think the argument is, I think what Ed's side is saying is like, well, look, 1 to essentially 3 in the bass to the 4 chord to the 5 chord is it's
As
practically
old as the
public
hills?
domain. It's out there. Now, the part where you make it kind of
That's not his only. His other argument was, "Honey, way down low."
yeah, there's other parts. There's also his
Like there's a whole rest of the
also
song.
Ed's melody was different than his vocal melody. The main melody is different from the melody of "Let's Get It On." He never sings it. Now George Harrison has a little on the nose.
There's a little on the
so
nose.
that was so it's
Tell him what song you're talking about. in case they
My
don't
Sweet
know.
Lord.
Yeah.
Harrison comes up with My Sweet Lord.
Great solo on that, by the way. If you haven't checked that out,
exquisite stuff.
It's one of the most
As
Harrison.
a record, it's unbelievably
If
great.
you haven't checked the record out, it's and even if you want to shred and you're listening to Polyphony, is that what's the band's name? Tim Henson. If you're listening to shredder bands, you still should listen to this because it's really good guitar playing.
Yeah, it's masterful because he's playing slide.
I don't have one here.
And then he plays a harmony to that on slide as well.
Yep.
And the precision that it takes to do this, it's just I
He's
had
a
an
detail
idea.
guy, too.
I had an idea years ago. I was making an album, and I thought, oh, I'll put a slide solo on there. I thought, oh, you know what? Well, you know, so I was like, oh, you know what? I should double track it.
That's
very,
what I
very
need. Good luck.
Harrison.
Yeah.
That took a lot longer than I thought.
Robots in. Bring the robots.
I was gonna use a robot. So, my sweet Lord, my Lord. This is the part that got George in trouble. My sweet Lord. Then going to the one. I really wanna know you. So that's really it's really a 7-note combination. There was a song by the Chiffons called "He's So Fine" that was written by a guy named Ronnie Mack, who had passed away by the time "My Sweet Lord" came out, I think. And the Chiffons song is in the key of G, different key. However, it's still the 2 minor going to the 5. He's so fine, oh so fine, do like, knows it was mine. So. So you know, the judge ruled that George
Is it a bench case?
Yeah.
Oh.
In New York. And the judge ruled that George subconsciously, he didn't purposefully rip it off.
How can he speak to his conscience?
This was the ruling. And by the way, that judge was on the side was a classical composer.
Even more. How
I know.
can he speak to his conscience?
So it was
That's probably why they wanted a bench trial.
So anyway, so George lost, and he has to share the profits of My Sweet Lord with the company that
He should
owned.
have appealed.
Now, what he did was in 2001, I think it was, or some year, that it was like the anniversary of the All Things Must Pass album came out, and George re-recorded My Sweet Lord, and he removed the 7 questionable notes. He did it without the 7 notes that got him in trouble.
It doesn't work.
It wasn't good.
It
wasn't good. Now, I, as a kid, I knew my mom had mentioned that this "He's So Fine, My Sweet Lord" thing.
Just like I have been mentioning to students that "Let's Get It On" sounds identical in many respects to
Yeah. So I grew up thinking that George meant it, that he wants me to think he's so fine, he being the Lord. I always thought it was on purpose.
That does speak to something
Which was brilliant, which I thought was brilliant. Okay, so we're gonna talk about song similarities, and I know that should we tell them that we're not live?
Oh, this
We're not
is
live.
canned. We're actually in the
pre-taped,
future.
by the way. You're like
And
30 minutes in.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now we're in the chat. A couple of us are in the chats right now with you live.
We are.
While you're watching this on Wednesday, but right now it's Sunday afternoon, so we're not reading your questions live, and
we're
that's
both
why.
working on Wednesday, but we wanted to make something for you guys anyway.
So sorry. If I were ever in court, I'd tune first. Now here's an example. So you're all thinking about, yeah, but this song sounds like that song, and this song, how'd so-and-so get away with this? And it's really up to whoever owns the publishing of the previous song on whether they want to sue or not. And what we don't know...
Anybody can sue anybody for anything.
The vast majority of the time, no one sues, right? We only know about the very rare instances where somebody does bring a case because that makes the news, right?
There has to be money to get, first of all, right?
My Sweet Lord was a number 1. Let's Get It On was a number 1.
And Let's Think It Out Loud was a global sensation.
Right.
I mean, that guy's been a
and
global
those guys
sensation.
and Randy California's estate. They went after Led Zeppelin recently for Stairway to Heaven.
I heard that.
They lost
Yeah.
because that minor line cliche with the motif, the contrary motion, it was easy to prove. Like there's tons of it in the classical canon. So Jimmy Page doesn't even come like I make. No, don't arpeggiate it the way.
Okay.
Just play this. Just play that as a classic example of what's. Yeah. That movement. So there's just a chromatic movement. It's just there. Now here's one. I love this one. This was a great one. So Neil Young's song "Harvest Moon," right, on acoustic guitar. It's in D. He's got. Love this. That's the motif. Now, the second I heard it, I was like, oh, I get it. The Everly Brothers walk right back to me. I want you to know why you walked out on me. Every day. So in my brain, in the song Harvest Moon, the guy in the song is going to take his lady out to dance somewhere on this harvest moon. And I assume that they're going to dance to the Everly Brothers song. That's why he's playing that lick. I'm supposed to think of these two things at once. I love it. I love this. No, the Everly Brothers didn't go after Neil because it's kind of nice. They're just good.
They were good guys.
They were terrible to each other.
Yeah, apparently very bad. But like the Muppets were treated better in their closet.
Now, so if you're going to write a song, and now look, I fully believe. I don't know what Ed said during the case, Ed Sheeran. But
he played guitar apparently.
Yeah, he had to bring his guitar. Yeah, well, Harrison brought his acoustic. He had to do it on this case. John Fogerty brought his when he got sued for sounding like himself. Long story. So yeah, you bring your guitar in because it's the best way to demonstrate something. And Ed, I think, had his like, well, here's what I was doing when I wrote the song.
Yeah.
Now, clearly, Ed and his songwriting partner, and I'm sure the producer, I'm sure the musicians that cut it. I'm sure the
point you made earlier.
The mixing engineer who, when you do a mix, you listen to it hundreds of. And Ed, live in concert, when doing his song, would start singing "Let's Get It On" over it. He was aware. Now, did Ed? I'm not. The idea is like, did Ed rip off "Let's Get It On" or not? And then he had said, "Well, I'd have to be an idiot if I'd stolen it and didn't want to get caught, but then I sang Let's Get It On in the middle of that song and went back and forth in front of thousands of people night after night. I'd have to be an idiot." Now, to that, I say, as I say to a lot of things, both things could be true.
Well,
but
there's a parallel.
He did a smart thing, though. He didn't sing the melody of Let's Get It On.
No.
He changed the tempo a little bit. No. So that's why I just didn't think the case had merit, because like, well, by the way, quirk of the law, this is fascinating to me. Let's Get It On was released in 1973. Actually, it was the number 1 single the week I was born.
Wow.
So, because of the time when it was released, they could not, the plaintiff could not bring in the recording of Let's Get It On. It had to be adjudicated with the music notation.
Wait a minute, say that again?
That's right. You could not present as evidence the recording of Let's Get It On. They could only produce the sheet music.
Oh, no wonder he won. No wonder he won. Because without the aesthetic similarities,
yes.
it's on paper.
There's a nuance there that not a lot of people... You got to read a little further in the news article about that. I think that's very, very interesting. Now, the reason that... again, Let's Get It On is 50 years old. So more recent recordings, because of the way records are made, you are allowed to bring in the recording.
We're getting closer. Why?
Well, that I don't know. I'll have to talk to somebody about that. But I just know that. Well, because now with sampling, the aesthetic, as you're saying, is kind of a part. Like people
sampling though is a direct. So a sample is
and
literally
and we
direct.
do have laws that cover that.
Yeah,
we've ironed that out.
We figured that out, and a lot of people got hurt. In the
here's some songwriting examples, everybody, about how if you're going to write a song, and let's say you notice the changes, or you'll play it for a friend. And like, those are the same chords to blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, but does this sound like blah, blah, blah? And then how do you avoid that? Now, here's some example, great example. Still Rock and Roll to Me by Billy Joel. It's in C. So it's C major, E minor, B flat, F. So
It's a shuffle.
So it's a shuffle. It's 1, 3 minor, flat 7, 4. And he said...
It's called a backdoor turnaround.
Backdoor turnaround. So now he knew the topic he wanted to write about.
Yeah.
But musically, he just needed to get going. So he took of all things, lay across my big brass head. He took Bob Dylan's Lay Lady Lay, which is an A, but it's
Killer song.
1, 3 minor, flat 7, 2 minor. So Billy changes key, and that fourth chord, instead of playing the 2 minor, he plays the 4, which are substitutes for each other. Yeah. And his vocal melody has no resemblance to Lay Lady Lay. Right. But he borrows that sequence. He says, it's enough to get me going. Yeah. Right? So we have examples of this. We have examples of, or here's another one. I love this one. Bruce Springsteen was writing the song Badlands. And he knew it was it's a class conscious song. Are we live?
Yes.
Okay. So he knew it was like a class conscious song. He wanted it to be anthemic, and he thought of being a student of rock and roll. He thought the band The Animals, the British band, a lot of their great songs were class conscious rock.
Sure.
We got to get out of this place, and it's my life, and I'll do what I want. Like the really kind of like this class
I missed the first part.
stuff.
Who's the author?
Springsteen is talking about this. Yeah. So he thought of one of the Animals' big hits was "Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood." He says all Animal songs had a proper intro, right? They all had like these really good, and "Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood" has this. It's in B minor.
I mean, that was a British thing at the time. That was a British invasion thing, don't you think? It's very Renaissance-y.
Very okay. So he says he wanted to do that. His song is in E major. So he takes this "Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood" intro and plays it and changes it over E major. So Badlands starts with, and it's piano and glockenspiel. It plays this over E. He did. He just...
I can see all those troubadours and troubadours getting their lawsuits together right now.
He says, this is how you do it, kids.
Yeah.
He just... he interpolated something. He was inspired. Now, I listened to Badlands for a majority of my life and didn't know, I never noticed the resemblance because my man disguised it and disguised it well.
Yeah.
So you can be inspired.
Sure.
But don't forget to be creative at the same, keep pushing, keep moving. This
is what was so bad about that judge's statement.
It's very troubling.
So wait a minute. You were saying that
because Harrison said in court he could not pretend as though he had never heard "He's So Fine" by the Chiffons.
Fair enough.
Sure, I've heard it.
You can't know this man's subconscious, much less his consciousness.
Look, I'll tell you. You know who else? You know who didn't buy it?
Anyone else in the legal community?
John Lennon. Oh. In John Lennon's 1980 Playboy interview, this comes up, and he says, and I don't know, I can't remember the word, but he said, John Lennon goes, I don't know about the subconscious stuff.
Yeah.
He says, George is a smart guy. He must have known.
Yeah.
He says he just thought he'd get away with it, or he thought maybe God would sort it out for him.
Well, I think we're equipped to I mean, when we rule on somebody's motive in a trial, and when we say hey, your intent was here, criminal intent.
That's what everything is. It's all motive. It's all intent.
But that's a conscious. We're voting on your conscious intent.
Yeah, that's manslaughter as opposed to.
And that could be influenced by subconscious elements, right? That could be influenced by animal brain, limbic system involvement.
Sure.
But as far as saying something was entirely a subconscious.
I'm just telling you that's what the man said.
That's wait a minute. So you're telling me that you understand the subconscious, and then. Furthermore, you understand how it's extrapolated in human behavior.
Well, look, man, this thing...
Good luck with that argument.
Look, this thing started in 1971. The case was settled in 76. After 5 years, I think Harrison just thought, fine, I'm done. I don't want to be involved. Let's just go. So point is, I'm sure you're all pulling your hair out thinking of other song examples. And again, I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying work as hard as Billy Joel or Bruce Springsteen when we're
write your lyrics first. Just write your lyrics.
Or that. I'm just
stanza format.
Well, just there's a way. But people are going to still create new music. That's not going away. Now we know that the AI did this. Somebody used AI to make a Drake song.
That's happening. Yeah.
And that's going on, and it's sort of because Drake's big hits have a lot of similarities, and the piano motif. I thought the robot did a really good job on that one, though.
So hold on. So there's a Rick Beato video. Rick Beato's Need Our Help.
I haven't seen it yet.
Like there's a Rick Beato video floating on that's sort of a speculation on the outcome of AI generated music.
Okay.
And he opens up with, "Hey, I don't like to speculate," right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is that it's a very doomsday scenario. I don't necessarily that he's equating the outcome to being what happened with streaming, or excuse me, with file sharing. So Napster.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying, look, that started with a couple artists suing, and eventually it turned into like an authoritarian attempt at control, and eventually it turned into a complete revolution with a 5 to 8 year down.
That's right. That's right.
That's a real possibility here. I mean, it very well could happen that the record company and streaming services are challenged at their core by this. And I don't think that those systems are well enough built to survive this challenge, and that is the problem. It's not so much that the challenge is the problem. It's that at their core, those systems are not well suited to reflect creative arts. They're not well designed to be champions or patrons of creative arts, and therefore they will continually be destroyed.
So
until their best form comes.
You and I, we were alive for when MIDI came around. We were wrong, but it was like we thought that was the end of everything. People thought that cassette recorders were going to be the end of everything. People thought that home stereo systems would be the end of everything. People thought that radios were going to kill creative music.
Let me give you some more.
People
thought, why would I ever buy bottled water? People thought, why would I ever pay for cable? I get it for free on an antenna. People thought, so it's like what we think is not a big deal oftentimes can turn out to be a very big deal. And what we think is a big deal oftentimes is probably...
Now, a guy named Chuck Klosterman wrote a book called What If We're Wrong? I think that's the name of the book. It's a really great book. And and he's positing right now we're wrong about something. We just don't know what it is.
Almost totally wrong.
I mean, there was a time, and you just go back in years and just think, well, blah 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 is the biggest movie of all time, and it'll never be topped. And then it was topped. Records are broken all the time.
Yes.
You know, from Bob Beamon in 1968 in the long jump to I don't know. I'm sure that no one thought that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's total would ever be beaten, and LeBron beat it earlier this year. So, but also, the answer to what the next thing is going to be is all we can say is it's going to be the future no matter what.
Yeah.
And when I remember when Napster happened, it was just like there was a huge panic, and now we just don't even talk about it anymore.
Well, there's a bigger overarching consideration for us.
Okay.
And that is, it took all of human history to reach 1 billion people, right? Mm-hmm. And then once we reached 1 billion people, which was, I forget how many years ago, but it wasn't that long ago, it took about 217 years to reach 8 billion now. And that is the definition of exponential change.
Right.
Meaning, like, you have this very, very long consolidation or accumulation followed by, boom, an uptick that is absolutely unstoppable and and parabolic.
I hold in my hand, I have access to more information in my hand, and I'm just me.
Yeah.
Than Abraham Lincoln ever did in his entire lifetime.
So I submit this to everyone, including myself. It is not access or agency of information that creates an issue any longer. It was at one time.
Yeah, sure.
Now the world is a fire hose pointed at your face. How do you get that down to a manageable stream?
Just get a guitar and play, man.
Yeah.
That's what you do. Just get a guitar. Now, here's another thing I want to talk about. Let's back to the music stuff. So what I want to talk about is the Nashville number system, and then we'll go away. I just want to explain it for those. A lot of you know what it is. Some of you may not know what it is if you're beginners. But I want to talk about
our John Mayer song. Do it with that, or
what? Oh, yeah. That's a good idea. Okay, there you go.
2-5
We've got So we agree. So Dylan and I, we know enough about music. We're looking at the changes, and I noticed this song, the AI spit out this John Mayer song in the key of G. For all I know, maybe John does a lot of songs in G. I don't know. You know, and that would be Not a bad thing. A lot of songwriters, they write to suit their voice, and maybe John's really comfortable in the key of G, meaning maybe we'd like to hit like the major third at the top of the range, and maybe he can comfortably hit that B note right there or something. Just like certain singers have their favorite keys. A lot of us guitar players have our preferred keys. So songwriters
People like their favorite speeds.
Tempos, yeah. Singer-songwriters, no different. So, so this song's in the key of G. Now, the first two chords, sir, are...
2.
Wait, no.
Oh, I'm just A minor 7.
A minor
D7.
7 to D7, and then
G
to C.
to C.
So it's a 4-chord sequence that's basically our verse. Now, I know what you and I automatically do, because of just years of playing music, is if we see that, and I simultaneously see 2 minor 7, 5 7, 1 4.
You gotta tell them why.
Now, the reason I'm doing that, first of all, that's the better way for me to memorize this thing. Now, before we started, what if Dylan decided, okay, we're going to do John Mayer, but I want to sing it.
I don't like this key.
But Dylan needs to move it down a full step to hit a certain note or whatever. He's just more comfortable there. Well, looking at A minor 7, D7, G, and C, now I've got to...
there's more calculus involved.
There's more calculus. But if I know that now we're in G, or now we're in F, I still have to...
2 of F?
G minor 7.
Yeah.
And then the 5 7 is C7.
Right.
And the 1 is F, and the 4 is going to be B flat.
There you go.
Now, now I can play this John Mayer song in any key. I can move it around without the aid of a capo or retuning, because I'm going to use this number system. And the number system, real quickly, I know Dylan's explained this in various spots here. The musical alphabet goes from A to G, and then it starts all over again. Okay, so we can kind of work this out on one hand, basically. If it's in the key of G, G is my 1 chord. As I go up the alphabet, so G is 1, I got to start out, A is 2, then B is 3, C is 4, D is 5, E is 6, F, or in the case of G, it's F sharp, is the 7th, and then when we get to 8, or octave, we're at G again. Okay, so notice, though, all the letters of the alphabet from A to G are represented, and I just count up, basically. So if I see that we're in the key of G, G. Okay, the first chord is A minor 7, so G to A. Okay, that's 2, and it's the minor 7. And the next one is D, so from G, A, B, C, D. It's the 5 chord.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Right.
And G is 1, as we said. And then now I see a C major chord. So G, A, B, C. C is the 4 chord. This will be true for any song in the key of G. This is locked information. So now, when we did the Bill Withers song, also in the key of G, it was G, B7, C, G. Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. So I immediately said, okay, it's 1, 3.
Oh, that's non-diatonic.
Non-diatonic, but B7 is so it's a 3 dominant, and then the 4 chord back to the 1. So 1, 3 dominant, 4, 1.
And that's he had to add that in because when we're referring to those chords using Roman numerals in the Nashville number system, which arguably is
it's based
after
on
the Roman numerals, it's for diatonic, meaning chords where you naturally build tertiary harmony out
all
of
the
major
notes
scale.
belong to the major scale of the key we're in. Now in G, the 3 chord would typically be B minor, because this note, D natural, is diatonic to the key of G.
Right.
But if we play it, this note
Not diatonic.
is not diatonic. So there's an exception.
And diatonic means 2-tonic system, major or minor.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it.
So now this Bill Withers song, if we had like someone here who has a higher voice than I do, and they wanted to do it, and we say, like, can we do it in B flat? Sure. Because I'm already 1, 3 dominant, 4, 1. And
Yeah,
then
before I knew that as a kid, I would just memorize the shapes.
The shapes are good.
And that honestly, that worked for a very long time. But the problem was, let's say you run out of space on the guitar, and it's like, well, wait a minute, I don't know how to play those chords when they're not
In the same spot every time.
Yeah, so like this, I could basically transpose up, or I'm still transposing up, but I'm actually voicing down.
So my advice is take a song
Yeah.
a song that you strum well enough, and then if you haven't already done so, try analyzing it and just figure out what's the number system.
Yeah.
So if it's a song that goes, let's say it's A, E, B minor, D.
Yeah.
And the chords, and they happen to be Sunday I'm in Love by The Cure. That's just the one I grabbed out of my head. Figure out what the numeric version of that is. Instead of just knowing A, E, B minor, and D, know that you're in the key of A, and then work from there. So A major is the 1, and I said the next chord was E major. So count up the alphabet: A, B, C, D, E. It's the 5 chord, and that's how we figure this out. And then we just kind of go. One, 5, 2 minor, 4. Now, I could write a song that goes 1, 5, 2 minor, 4, and probably not get flat out sued, but I'd also move some things around. I would play it in a different key. I'd try a different rhythm.
Oh.
Right. And I'll keep going. Here's what I'm also not going to do. I'm not going to play the hook melody. I'm not going to try this.
Now you are getting sued.
Now I'm getting sued. I've borrowed too many ingredients from the recipe, right? So, but I could write, we could write a straight ahead rocker with 1, 5, 2 minor, 4, and just do, or how about substitute chord? But we'll talk about chord substitutions later. Have we gabbed enough for everybody? It's so weird knowing that you guys can't ask questions like right now while I'm talking, but knowing I can only imagine in the future, Wednesday, what the heck we'll be chatting about in the chat. Says this is kind of this is very, very hip.
I think this is an interesting topic because it forces, whenever you have anything that questions something sustainability, like songwriting and music making, it makes you parse out the meaningful elements. It makes you separate the wheat from the chaff. Mm-hmm. So if we question whether or not you should be able to access certain books in a school, for example, it makes you parse out what is the meaning of allowing access to books.
What is the value of a book?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And those are not derivative conversations. Those are conversations that are actually stoic in nature. Mm-hmm. They lead us to the most adequate and the most meaningful conclusions, the most well-representing conclusions. Mm-hmm. And so every now and then we get far enough off track as humans.
But it's good, man. It makes us ask these bigger questions.
Yes.
It's good. It makes us kind of examine the value of any given thing.
That was the easier way to say that. Yeah, there you go.
So, okay, so we're going to go out. I want to, again, hit us up on Patreon. We have some new subscribers, which we really, really do appreciate. We really appreciate that. And we'll be back next week with another show. I believe we have a great guest coming up for that. And then we're going to go out on the song that Dylan and I just kind of wrote in G, the straight ahead rocker. That's a 1, 5, 2 minor, 4. We're going to go out on that. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much, Dylan. This is fun. Here we go.
Good job.
He says I have to press stop. That's, I guess, how the show works.